Hello and welcome to World Talks. I'm your host, Sasha Farbach. Now, with Poland approaching a decisive presidential runoff, the nation faces a moment of profound political consequence. Now, with foreign endorsements, allegations of interference, and questions about the nation's future direction, voters face a choice that could reshape Poland's place in Europe. Now, we're joined in the studio by Tomasz Płudowski, Deputy Dean of the School of Social Science at the University of Economics and Human Sciences, to break down the issues and deep implications of this race. Welcome to the program. Good to have you.
Good morning, Sasha. Thank you for having me.
So let's start out with yesterday's endorsement, that impact. We had Kristi Noem's endorsement of Karol Nawrocki at CPAC in Rzeszów. How is this going to impact, if any? Will this work in his favor? Is it going to have the contrary effect? We have the Republican letter. Give us your take on this endorsement by the Republicans.
Well, I would say that this is going to have international implications, and it's looking from the traditional international diplomacy point of view, diplomatic point of view. This is atypical for a representative, a current representative of the government of one country to interfere directly, go to the country where elections are about to be held, and support directly, very clearly, overtly, one candidate over another, and say that if you elect this person, then the country will have great relations with the U.S. And a lot more was said about weapons, Poland having weapons and being able to fight anyone. So this was really not a typical diplomatic speech. It almost sounded like it was playing into Poland's fear against Russia, but maybe different words should have been used. But in general, she shouldn't have, traditionally speaking, I mean, I'm not making any suggestions, and I'm not trying to say what American Homeland Security should say or should not say, but this is definitely atypical in international politics. It's seen as one country trying to interfere directly in the elections of another. Also, it doesn't play so well. I mean, if you listen to what Law and Justice, and Nawrocki is the representative of Law and Justice, they support the idea of sovereignty, Poland being a sovereign country, not being under the influence of the European Union mostly, but this obviously goes against that. I mean, if a representative of any other country tells you who to elect, obviously your sovereignty is not complete, right?
Well, as you said, I think definitely the Trump administration has been far from anything typical, as we could say. That's, I think, an understatement. But I also want to go in further on what she said, I think, at that same CPAC event, saying very much that, well, military support by the United States that hinges on who wins. Now, how much of that is it true? Is it not true? How do you interpret someone saying that? Or is this something that is very much bipartisan support for Poland by the United States?
I think it's mostly not true. I think this means that Trump and his representatives want Law and Justice to win in parliamentary elections, and obviously Nawrocki to win in presidential elections. But our relations are going to be more or less the same, but obviously they want to have ideological allies in Europe, so they have warm relations with Italy because of who is in power, but they can have regular working relationships with other countries where, say, liberal or left-wing or whatever representatives are in power, like Macron, for example, in France, right? So I don't think it's going to impact, as long as Poland is an ally, or we are allies, both the US and Poland, allies in NATO, and as long as Poland buys American equipment, military equipment, which we are, I think this is going to be more or less business as usual. But he definitely prefers Law and Justice politicians. He has good relations with Duda, it seems, but they don't seem to be very deep. I mean, you don't see Nawrocki or Duda when they are in the U.S. really treated as equals. It's a matter, I think, of international experience, of their English, levels of English. I mean, Nawrocki didn't even, he maybe spent, I don't know, 10 seconds next to Trump. You didn't see any common statements, you didn't see an exchange, you didn't see him kind of being on a par with, I don't know, Macron or Meloni, right? So this is unfortunate because we should, regardless of your ideology, Poland should have politicians that can be treated as equals by world powers.
And as you said, if we're looking back at recent few months, as you said, former President Duda, or still incumbent President Duda, very much someone that touted those relationships, and I think it was seen that he didn't have that much contact with the Trump team. We'll see how it goes either way in a few days. In those few days that we have left, some of the main concerns here, tell us a little bit about what your take is on what matters to Polish people right now. Has it changed in these 2 weeks of the second time we're waiting for the runoff? Is it still the same? What's sticking out right now, the important thing for Polish voters?
I think Polish voters are very polarized, pretty much like in the US, in many countries. There was a good documentary on television about the train. Both parties organized stage demonstrations in Warsaw on the same day. So a journalist went on a train to talk to both sides, and they have a lot in common. Both think they are patriotic, but they have very different values, and they see the reality very differently. I think they see the reality, and both candidates, very subjectively. There's a lot of difference there. I think anyone can win at this point. There's a difference of, I think, between the candidates. Now, Trzaskowski is in the lead. He has a lead of about 1.5%. And the margin of error, statistically speaking, is 3%. So anything can happen.
And still many undecideds.
Yes, there are still about 6% undecided. And generally, candidates of parties like Law and Justice or Samoobrona are underrepresented in the polls. So that speaks in favor of them. There have been a lot of scandals involving Nawrocki, more than I can remember in any elections, because he's not a typical politician. He's not a career politician. He has a PhD in history, but there are a lot of facts. He hasn't been checked. They haven't done opposition research, what in campaigns usually they do before they officially suggest or nominate someone as their candidate. And it seems like they either haven't done it, or they expected him to lose, or Kaczyński nominated him because he doesn't have support in the party. So he would not challenge Kaczyński, who is about to, I think, retire pretty soon. So that goes against, but that really didn't prevent many people from all those scandals. I mean, they are really, I'm not going to mention them, you can look them up, but there's 3 or 4 that are really big and atypical for a candidate of a presidential format. You don't want your president to have this kind of background, but that doesn't prevent his voters from changing, that doesn't change his voters' minds. And I think you see this cognitive dissonance, that people want to see what they want to see, and they lower the weight of this kind of information. They say it's not true, or it's it's propaganda, or it doesn't matter. And you basically see, I think he still has a good chance of winning, but Trzaskowski is in the lead.
Well, as you said, various allegations on both sides. We still have a few days to go. One of the things you mentioned, it's a polarized society at the moment. Poles are very much at the same time, you said patriotic, but at the same time polarized. One of those issues, and I want to get your info on this, is how to deal with Europe, right? It seems to be also, that's in this as well, the European community, the European Commission, the big term Brussels. So whoever is in charge come Monday, how would that relationship impact or change potentially between Poland and European institutions?
I think Poland's relations with the EU would change more dramatically than with the US. I think we're going to have pretty good relations with the US, regardless of which one of them will win. But definitely there is a difference of values between both candidates. And the European Union, and I would say minority rights and immigration, are the 3 areas where you see most difference between Nawrocki and Trzaskowski. So I think if Trzaskowski wins, then we're going to have pretty smooth relations with the European Union. He was in the EU Parliament. He has good international background. I mean, I don't know, he speaks 5, I think, foreign languages, Italian, Spanish, and so on and so forth, has good contacts. And I think generally Law and Justice speak very negatively about the EU. They don't want Poland to lose sovereignty, as they say. And obviously it was actually the treaty, membership treaty was signed by Lech Kaczyński and negotiated by the Kaczyński brothers to a large extent, but now they are playing against that. They very often change course, and whatever they accept first or even negotiate, like green the Green Pact, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They now speak against. So I think they are willing to play into nationalism, and the EU is a perfect scapegoat, so to speak. So I think if their candidate is elected, we're going to see a rocky future for Polish-EU relations.
We're conscious on time, just 30 seconds, just a brief take on what it means, whoever wins, also Trzaskowski or Nawrocki, what does that mean for Tusk's plans and the Tusk government going forward?
Well, obviously it's not going to be, there might be even early elections if Nawrocki wins. If both the government and the president come from the same camp, so if Trzaskowski wins, then Tusk government is going to be able to finally introduce the changes that they promised to introduce, and that prevent, I think, from about 1.5 million Poles from voting. So now, if he wins, then we'll be able to see if they really wanted to introduce those social changes, for example, involving abortion or LGBT rights. And obviously, if Nawrocki wins, this is going to be impossible, and any major change will be impossible. We might see early elections. Many
different scenarios. We'll be watching with bated breath. Every vote counts for sure. We'll close it there. Tomasz Płudowski, thank you so much for coming and sharing your insights. And thank you for watching. It concludes World Talks here on TVP World, but stay tuned, much more coming up right here. Bye-bye.